Welcome to the Revolutionary CEO podcast. I'm your host, Letitia Lynch, Paris lover, devoted boy mom, and a typical Capricorn who is an Enneagram 8 leader and overachiever. After launching my business during COVID, it grew faster than I anticipated and quickly turned into all the things I hated about toxic corporate overwork culture. Now I'm restructuring it to prioritize the lifestyle I desire and break free from overworking without compromising my income. It's easy to get burned out doing all the things that made your business the success that it is today, but that success is still available when you prioritize yourself over the business. Personally, I'm restructuring my business and focusing on writing my first book, speaking on stages, teaching groups of women how to run their business led by a lifestyle first philosophy, and building a community. Join me every Wednesday as I give you the inside scoop on how to balance business, work, motherhood, self-care, and mental health. I'll share my raw thoughts on entrepreneurship, the reality behind the scenes of building a successful online business, and how businesswomen in pop culture imitate real life. As your marketing coach, I'm also going to share my experiences with contractors, clients, having a team, as well as personal and business branding, practical business and marketing advice, strategies, and tips. Let's get into it. Welcome to season 2 of the Revolutionary CEO podcast. Y'all, I know, I know it's been a minute. I'm embarrassed, but honestly, you can't imagine what has happened since the last time I recorded this podcast back in 2021. So to recap, when this podcast started in March of 2021, what was kind of going on in my business at the time was I had first hired my mom as my very first employee. I learned what employee taxes were and how much I hate them. I also had officially started launching my VIP days. It took me a while to really get that off the ground because I was very nervous launching them. But this is around the first time that I started launching VIP days. I just launched a few lead magnets that still stand today. Just so much was going on in my business at the time. And at the time, I would say my business was normally it was averaging about $12,000 to $15,000 a month. But at the beginning of 2021, I hit some low seasons and I had never had that before, but I also had not been a full-time business owner exclusively yet for a year at that time when I started the podcast back in March of 2021. I didn't hit one full year as a full-time entrepreneur until July the 11th of 2021. So putting that into perspective, I clearly have had a lot of growth since then. So I thought I'd kick off season 2 by just kind of telling you what the hell's been going on because y'all, it's a lot. And I think that this is really going to help you as a business owner to see the ups and downs of successful businesses, but also that, I think so many business owners don't really, or coaches and just online experts don't really share the true highs and lows. And when they do share the lows, they share them after they've already gotten back to the high, as if they were too embarrassed to share when it wasn't going so well. And you already know I don't function that way. So where have I been? 2021 was the first year that I went to something called CEO Weekend. It's where I connected with my business coach that I needed to help me. And I didn't hire her until 2022, but I didn't hire her until 2022, but this is the first year that I paid for something and got an experience with her. It's also the time when I realized that I wasn't really doing that well as a salesperson. Now, you're probably hearing that and saying, didn't you just say you were making $12,000 to $15,000 on average? Yes, I was. Making money doesn't mean you're necessarily a good salesperson. I'm good at marketing. So my message and how I designed my business is to do attraction marketing where I could bring people to me and they would already basically be ready to buy. So I didn't really need the pressure of selling. But selling really at this time when I went to CEO Weekend, which would have been August of 2021, I was very uncomfortable with sales. It was really important for me to go to CEO Weekend. I want to share something with you that I have never shared publicly before about that time in my business. At that time in my business, I was running out of cash because I was paying my mom and my salary. And I was also, again, still making 12 to 15, but spending all of that money. And so when CEO Weekend first was like, when, she was first promoting it, I did what you probably do. I watched all the content, got on her email list or whatever she had at the time. And guess who didn't purchase in time? Me. I didn't purchase, even though it's something that I knew I should have done. And then I was looking at all the people who were going and I was like getting major FOMO. But then guess what happened? Suddenly I see her stories one day and she's like, hey, one person had to drop out. So I have one spot available for CEO weekend. Message me because it will be gone today, and she don't play. And so I was out with my mom, my husband, and my son, and we were going out to eat. And I was like, I really want to go to this event. So I'm telling my husband first, because naturally, and he's like, that doesn't sound like that's a good investment. That's a lot of money. You know, he just was very discouraging, not intentionally, but he was. And then I looked at my mom, and my mom said, you should do it. I think that this is exactly what you need. And one of the reasons why I needed to go to this particular retreat with this particular coach is because she specialized in leadership coaching. And what I was struggling with was leading my mom. My mom and I were really struggling to work together. And there is an episode that I'll link in the show notes where she first started working with me. And then we went 7 months in and did a recap of how things are going. And so I think we even did a yearly update. So anyway, I will make sure that whatever episodes are about how it was working with her are in the show notes, because you really need to hear how much I grew as a leader and how much you probably need to grow, because I think a lot of us were taught to hire contractors, and then we hired all these contractors, and it turns out that we weren't ready to lead. We weren't ready to really delegate. We didn't really understand how to tell people and give them feedback and tell them when they're messing up or to get them to improve. And also we hired a lot of people to do things that we hated in our business, because all these damn coaches were saying to hire out for all the stuff that you hate or the things you don't know how to do. Well, guess what? We hate a lot and don't know how to do a lot. And then what happens? We spend up all of our money hoping to just make more money, but literally we're just trying to make more money to pay all these people that we were told to hire to make our businesses easier, which is a nightmare. But that's a whole nother episode for another day, because I'm going to spend an entire episode talking about what it's like to hire contractors and hire a team and the things I want you to learn from my mistakes. But anyway, I wanted to go because at this particular retreat, I wanted to talk about my struggle hiring my mom and what I really need help with in my business and how I really want to grow my business. And I know I could be doing better. I was thinking about launching the VIP days. Again, I told you I lightly was launching it from about March to until the summer of 2021. Then I kind of fell off, but I was still getting sales. Weirdly enough, people were still buying it and asking about it. And, but I still wasn't really selling it. And I still had never booked out one cohort of Revolutionary Brand. Now, when you hear me say that, you're probably like, oh, that sucks. You probably weren't doing well. No, I was doing very well. Every launch, I was still generating about 20K. It's just that if I had actually booked it out, I would generate like 48K. So anyway, that was happening. I go to CEO weekend. I talk through my issues with leading my mom and how apparently you can't just train people for like a week in person and give them some Loom videos and SOPs and think that that's enough. And that's what I did to my mother. Also, she's an old lady, so she don't know how to use technology. It was just the whole thing. You got to listen to the old episodes. I promise it's linked in the show notes. I also got confronted by Tamasha in the coaching way about why I'm not selling my stuff better. And she made me realize, one, that my offers weren't different enough. Like the VIP day was just me doing the launch content for someone, but the price point was basically the same as Revolutionary Brand was. And she couldn't for the life of her understand why I was doing that, because people would just be like, well, then just, I would like you to do it. But a lot of people were like, or I can pay just a little bit less and, you know, I'll learn it. It wasn't distinguished enough. So I learned a lot about how I wasn't really doing well on how I was talking about that particular offer. But also, I really wasn't trying to sell. I was hoping that people would come to me. How often is it that you know you need to speak up more about sales, but it makes you feel bad or weird? And so you just don't, but you hope that just saying, click the link in my bio or get on my wait list and I'll send some emails, which means you get to directly sell, and you don't have to feel so icky or so uncomfortable. You don't have to really deal with the rejection because in your mind, they just ignored your emails. I know that happens because it was happening to me. But something hit me and clicked for me that day during that particular retreat. And everything changed for me from then. So basically, I came back and started going really all in on my business in September of 2021. And the things that I decided to sell based on the season that I was in my life at the time, which was I don't really feel like doing a whole lot right now because those holidays were coming. I knew my brother was going to be in the country with my niece and my sister-in-law, and I wanted to spend the entire month of December hanging out with them. But I also had big goals. I wanted to make $20,000 a month. And so I just said, fuck it. And I just went for it. And guess what I started doing? Selling. I started talking about mentorship and how I had one-on-one spots for that. And then I started talking about my VIP day. And that's all I was going to sell because Revolutionary Brand had sold its last cohort in September. And I was done selling that. And now it's moved on. By the way, the September cohort of Revolutionary Brand in 2021 was my first time I booked out the cohort. So it's like I came back a whole new person, realizing, first of all, the thing that I didn't tell anybody, you're like, wait, you didn't tell us the secret. The secret was my business didn't have the $5,000 to pay for this trip. I ended up paying $5,000 out of pocket. I had the cash because I was, paying myself like a normal person. And I paid out of pocket to go on this trip for myself. And I know you're thinking that sucks because who wants to spend their own money for something that they can really see as professional development in their business? But sometimes I think we avoid investments because we are holding on to something material like money. I don't want to spend my $5,000 out of my personal pocket to pay for any professional development. But guess who needed professional development? Me. Guess whose business did not have the capital to be spending that kind of money on professional development? Mine. And guess who still made the choice to go on this trip and pay out of pocket? Me. It was worth it because guess who then turned around and started making $20-something thousand a month after that? Me. I'm telling you, sometimes the investments are uncomfortable because it's like the universe wants to know if you're serious about this thing. And I wanted the universe to know whether this money is coming from my business or my pocket, I am so serious about this and I need this to work out. And so I did it. And it was the best investment that I could have made. So that was 2021. Everything was great. Guess who came into 2022 making $30,000 a month? Because now at this point, now I'm comfortable with sales. So now I'm selling left and right. I'm selling out my VIP days and I changed the price on the VIP days because again, I talked to Tamasha and I realized I needed to change my price point and also the quality of the service. I wanted to include email. It used to be a bonus and it wasn't. So anyway, I started doing that, making $30,000 a month. And guess what I started doing? Investing in a bunch of contractors. Why? Because I was booked and busy. And they say when you're booked and busy, hire a team so you can step into your CEO and only focus on working with your clients and, working in the business and not on the business or whatever they say. And I believed in that. And so I started hiring all these people. And yes, some of them were saving me time. Yes, they were doing things that I did not feel like doing, even though I knew how. I didn't feel like doing them. And yes, I was booked the hell out. And I did this for 6 months straight. In the first quarter, I almost made $100,000. I was at like $98,000. So, and that was the most I had ever made in a quarter. And also that was basically, I was making about 120, 150 or 180 a year. So with this, I'm like, I'm going to crush my, revenue goals this year, just knowing I made basically 100K in the first quarter. And by the time the second quarter, like within April, I was at 6 figures for the year. I was like, man, I'm a bad bitch. And then all this stuff started happening with the contractors messing up my services and, I'm catching mistakes that they're making and I was stressed out and I hated my business. And so it's no wonder I didn't bring the podcast back for season 2 because I was like, I don't know what this business is going to be. And I don't have anything positive to talk about on my podcast. So I took a break from the podcast and I started also removing services. So I didn't want to do Revolutionary Brand for a little while. And I really honestly didn't want to do the VIP days anymore. And this was an interesting period of time because I started experimenting, doing some workshops. And what I ended up learning from the workshops is that people need to learn a lot about marketing, like just different parts of marketing, not Instagram, which I always talk about, not just launching, but every aspect of marketing on other channels. And I didn't really talk at this point about how I obviously managed all those other marketing channels for other companies, as well as have all of those channels myself. And they're all doing really well. And so I decided to start a membership. Revolutionary Society was born in September of 2022 and launched to the public in October of 2022. And I can tell you that along the way, last year was the most money I ever made in my business. I ended up around like $220,000, a little bit over. I paid myself more than I ever was able to pay myself for my business. For the longest, I've been paying myself exactly $5,000 a month because that's what I was making technically in corporate outside of my bonus. And I was able to pay myself $10,000 a month from my business. I will talk about whether or not that was a good idea in another episode. And I had seen what it felt like to be booked out and to make a crap ton of money. And I hated it. I saw what it felt like to hire a team, and it was not what I expected, nor would I recommend approaching it how I approached it, which is why I'm going to dedicate an entire episode to this. So here we are, season 2 of the podcast. And I'm different now because since the end of 2022, I've been thinking about what I want my business to look like, and it needs to be prioritizing my lifestyle and my life, right? And so here's what I came up with for myself, and then here's what you can look forward to now because of who I am today. So first things first, who I am now and what I'm working toward. I'm in the process of writing a book. I'm really excited about writing this book. It is something that's been a goal of mine. I started getting really into business books last year, 2022. And coming into this year, I knew I wanted to write my own. I joined a coaching program just in the last couple of weeks to help me to do that. You guys know I always share why I hire the type of coaches that I hire, and I only hire them for very specific things that I need, whether it's to learn how to build a business and offers, or to build a coaching program that's a group program, or to learn how to be a better leader, or in this case, learn how to write a book. The second thing is I want to focus my energy on my membership because I would like to work with a lot of people, obviously at one time, but on different topics and different aspects of business and marketing and leadership and operations and just all the things that I think no one talks about when it comes to running your business and operating your business and selling within your business and growing and expanding that business. And so I wanted to have a place where I help people to implement every single thing that I'm teaching on a regular basis, but I wanted it to be different things every single month so that I'm excited and they're excited too. I want to have 60% of my income and revenue in my business come passively through digital offers. So I'm going to focus on this digital shop that I have that I don't really talk about and speaking. And that's it. I want to be on more stages. I do want to spread the word about so many things that I've learned being a mother and an entrepreneur and growing this business. And it's funny because I started updating my topics, and some of the new topics that I want to speak on is being a mom and making money and creating offers that fit your business and lifestyle goals. I want to talk about going beyond the bottom line and measuring business success through quality of life and not just revenue. This is for my overachievers. And I want to talk about how to rise above perfectionism and conquer the fear of failure in business. Every time I change my business model, I have to grapple with the fear of failing at the new thing that I decide to do. Whether it was me going from being a designer to being a business coach, and from being a business coach to a different type of service provider when I did the VIP days, and going from being a coach and a service provider to a mentor and having this membership, and now going into being an author. These are very scary changes, and I have to keep reinventing myself and being okay with some things not working out. I also went back to corporate. I got a role as the VP of marketing at a tech startup in January. And I absolutely love the job. And going back to corporate allows me to focus on shifting my business model and not being stressed out about income, not being pressed to just launch any and everything, desperately trying to make money. And so this was a very important decision that I made for other lifestyle changes that I want to make that I'm going to be sharing with you in a later episode. probably episode 4. I was going to do it before the launch party, but I think I'm going to save it for one more episode out. So here's what you have to look forward to in this season of the podcast. If you didn't hear in the intro, I want to talk about how to break free from overworking without compromising your income. So a lot of the topics that you're going to hear on this podcast is about my raw thoughts on entrepreneurship, especially the highs and lows of it and how people are teaching out there. I want to talk about the reality of what it takes to run a successful business and how it doesn't always look good. If you hear someone saying I make $30,000 a month and they're like unhappy, it's because there are so many things that people don't usually share. And I think that there has to be people who are willing to just put themselves out there. And I'm going to be that person. I want to talk about some of the different business women that I see in pop culture. And I'm going to lean more towards the women of color. So shows like Insecure. I want to talk about stuff like that, where there's a woman of color in a situation growing into who she is, because I feel like it's going to be very relatable. Because I think it's so fun to watch these shows and be like, dang, I'm glad it's not just me. Like, I would love to meet Issa because she's a Capricorn, and I just love seeing how she not only had this show about what it's like being a Black woman in corporate, coming into starting a business, the highs and lows of that, the highs and lows of income and revenue, but also she in real life has a bunch of different businesses that she runs and how she's grown into that and making decisions and networking with these, working with these networks. I also want to talk about my experiences with contractors, with clients, with having a team, as well as just talking about personal and business branding. I want to give you practical business and marketing advice, strategies, and tips, because this new generation of entrepreneur, like this new evolution of what it means to be an entrepreneur, we are not in 2020 anymore, when we were just all happy that we could figure out how to make some money on the internet while we didn't know what was happening in the world around us and we were afraid to leave our homes. We were so desperate to make these businesses work that we were willing to do anything. And now, in our Lord's year of 2023, we have realized that we built businesses just like the corporations we were running from. We have realized that we created the misery, the stress, the overworking, the looking at our emails in the middle of the night, the clients contacting us all day, every day, the people not trusting our decision-making processes or, how we operate, not being paid what we deserve. We brought that shit to our own businesses, and this is the time to change it. In 2023 and beyond, we are no longer undercharging. We are no longer worrying about failing and how that's going to look. We are showing up proudly. We are speaking out on things that we believe in and don't appreciate. We are taking up for ourselves. We are doing what makes sense for us and the lifestyles that we actually want to live without letting our businesses dictate how we run our lives. And hell, we're going back to corporate if that makes sense for you, or don't. But we are making decisions that suit us and make us happy, and does not compromise our lifestyles or our pockets. I will see you in the next episode, but something that I want you to do is, if you have not subscribed to my newsletter, if you think you like how I talk on this podcast, you'll like the newsletter. It's called the High Ticket Scoop, because what I like to share there is literally just like the tea. I always give you guys the inside of, like, somebody said some crazy shit to me and this is how I dealt with it. This is how I felt about different situations. And one that I'm going to talk about in particular that has to do with me going back to corporate, and how some of those coworkers were so concerned about my business and how it feels to tell the truth to a company and what can happen to you when you share that you have a business and they act like it's a good thing. It may not always be. So make sure you subscribe to the High Ticket Scoop newsletter. The link will be in the show notes, and I will see you in the next episode. Welcome back, bitches! If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, subscribe to the Revolutionary CEO podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform and leave a review to let me know the moments you enjoyed the most. For insights, tips, and conversations, connect with me on Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok. I'm always at Her Marketing Coach. Together, let's continue empowering ambitious and driven women in business. Talk to you next week.